Hey, this is Broly. So it goes without saying that the Devil May Cry games are freaking hard. The enemies are merciless, the game is technically difficult to play and master, and the bosses can be impossibly hard. So it's really tough when you're first starting out. Even for me, when I first played Devil May Cry 3 years and years ago, I didn't get past Cerberus in level 3 on freaking normal difficulty, okay? I completely gave up on the game. Now, lucky for me, a friend got me back into it a few months down the road, and the rest is history. This is precisely why I wanted to make this video. Getting good at these games is a grind, and you will die a lot. But it's incredibly rewarding and fun once you start breaking in, and hopefully these tips will help you out along the way. So without further ado, let's get into it. Tip number 1. Master your dodges. Outside of using Trickster, you basically have two ways to dodge: rolling and jumping. Now luckily for us, both are fully invincible on the first few startup frames. Both techniques are critical to success, and this game gives you very little, so you really have to make the most of what you're given. Once mastered, properly timing your jumps can actually allow you to dodge and attack at the same time in the form of what's called a short jump. It's basically a jump that's cancelled into attack at the earliest possible frame. This is highly effective with both weapons, whether you're playing Dante and Virgil, as well as the shotgun as shown here. Tip number 2, weapon switch cancels. This is just one of the many types of frame cancels that's possible in this game. For example, dodge cancels, jump canceling, etc. For example, you can't fire the sniper rifle Spiral or the rocket launcher in rapid succession, but if you swap over to Ebony and Ivory, you can actually cancel the recovery frames of your first shot into the pistol shots and then back to the first gun to shoot even faster. This is even more powerful when you're using Royal Guard to actually cancel your first shot, as shown here. Check out that rapid fire, baby. Tip number 3, master your weapons. There are two parts to this one. First, it's necessary to understand the properties of each weapon, specifically which weapons excel in what situations. For example, in missions where you encounter a lot of the archer enemies, you should almost always have Nirvana equipped, mainly because you can destroy their attacks and simultaneously counterattack with the basic combos that Nirvana has. In a nutshell, Rebellion and Cerberus are great for one-on-one combos, but they're weak at crowd control. Agni and Rudra and Nirvana are perfect for crowd control, but they're not as good when you're dealing with one-on-one enemies because their damage output is slightly lower, so they're not as good for bosses, for example. And Beowulf is slow but has high damage output, which makes it great for fighting bosses. And it also has the extra added mobility thanks to its aerial attack Killer Bee. In later difficulties, using the wrong weapons in certain levels or even certain situations like boss fights or certain types of enemy combinations is just going to make your life unnecessarily harder. For example, for most bosses, your go-to weapons should be Rebellion and Beowulf, and I reckon if you try fighting Virgil with Agni and Rudra and Cerberus, you're going to have a tough time, to say the least. The second part to this tip is to learn which of your moves are highly committal and learn how to avoid using them in the wrong situations or situations where it'd be unsafe to do so. For example, most of Rebellion's and Agni and Rudra's moves are pretty safe and can be easily cancelled into a roll or a jump so that you can get out of harm's way in case an enemy sneaks up on you. But Cerberus, for example, its forward and backward special moves are highly committal, means you are literally stuck in position until the animation is finished. So you have to be careful about what types of situations you're using these weapons in. Now that's not to say that you can never use these moves, rather it's important to understand in what situations it is safe to do so. Tip number 4. Use the environment to your advantage. In a nutshell, corners are your friend. The way this game works, enemies will rarely initiate an attack from off screen. In other words, they cannot attack you unless you can see them. Use this to your advantage. Stick to the corners of a map rather than fighting in the open, and this will limit the number of enemies in your field of view so that you can fight specific enemies or you can fight groups of enemies in smaller numbers. A common tactic to exploit this enemy behavior is isolating certain types of enemies in the corner or off to the side. In this example, I have 3 sloths trying to attack me, 2 of them which have already devil triggered, so I want to target the one that's just normal. So I take him over to the side here, and the other 2 sloths now have much less screen to teleport into in order to be in my frame of view and initiate an attack. So I'm relatively safe to concentrate on this guy and finish my play. Check it out! It's a party in the corner. You're invited, and you're invited, not you. Tip number 5. Know your enemy. It goes without saying that understanding the various attacks each enemy has is more or less mandatory just to finish one of these games. But it's not just about knowing the attacks and range of each enemy, etc. It's also about understanding their habits. For example, the most basic enemy type in Devil May Cry 3, the Prides, have a tendency to either walk or jump into frame from off screen and take a swipe at you. So if you're beating up someone and you know that there are Prides in the map, then you know it's only a matter of time before a Pride jumps in from nowhere and ruins your day. Well, that's it for me. If you like this video or learned something, please like and subscribe because it really helps me out. As always, happy to help with any questions on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.